Welcome to Audio Path, where we let you in on our experiences, insights, and real-life scenarios working in the music industry. I'm Trent, and I've been a studio owner and operator, a music venue owner and operator, and a musician.
And I'm John. I've been a mix engineer, mastering engineer, live sound technician.
And together, we've got 30 years of experience in the music industry.
Whether you're an artist, an engineer, or somebody who just really likes music, these stories are for you.
Come with us as we pull back the curtain of the music industry.
And let's take a walk down the audio path. Welcome back to another episode of the Audio Path podcast.
That's right.
That's right. I'm John. This is Trent.
Hello.
I think you already know that at this point.
Yeah. Unless you're tuning in for the first time, and in which case, thank you for coming to the podcast.
Welcome to the path.
That's right. That's right.
Well, what a topic we have for today.
Yeah, I think this one is, I hope that people are curious on this one. I know that they are, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully we can shed a little bit of light on it and maybe help someone make this decision for themselves.
And the decision, of course, is
when to transition from a part-time audio or music industry worker into full-time.
That's right. When to make the jump.
When to make the jump, which could be the biggest moment. Certainly the biggest early on moment in your path.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
So, of course, John and I both have this type of transition, and we're going to share our insights and that experience with everyone. And then, yeah, I mean, I think that's most of it.
Yeah,
right?
We're just going to share our stories.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll learn something about when it's time for you to make a similar
case.
choice.
Yeah, the full disclaimer here, neither John or I are responsible for any financial hardship that may occur from making this move.
That's right. Yes.
We are not qualified financial advisors. We are just two dudes working in the audio industry.
This is not financial advice.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Or your marriage or anything
Yeah,
else.
or any other types of...
any relationships.
Yeah.
We are not responsible.
We're not responsible because we're going to tell you that it's not the easiest path out there. But
it is not.
If you're watching this, listening to this, it may be one that you're called to.
And very rewarding.
Yes,
if
very
it is
rewarding
for you.
one. Yes.
Cool. So, Trent, how did you hop into
Yeah.
being a full-time everything you are?
A full-time studio runner, operator, engineer. Yeah, man.
Engineer. I like that.
So, all right. So I'll have to take it back a number of years here. So I would say it was 2012 and 2012 into 2013-ish. 2012 into 2013, somewhere in there. Can't remember the exact month or whatever. But so I was in school for recording I went straight from high school to recording school. And we have a whole episode of, is school right for you or not? So if you don't have to take this path for sure, maybe go check that out if you're curious about whether you want formal training or you just want to try to get into it on your own. But I went to school for it. And then after that, long story short, I went to business school at UNCW in Wilmington here. And after business school, I put the two together, and that's whenever I started the studio. And so when I first started, okay, let me rewind just a little bit further because I technically started under the name Hourglass in a part-time way earlier. When I was in High Point, North Carolina, I started doing some recordings in my band's practice space and did make a couple albums there. So that's when I kind of was doing it part-time. I was also working at a venue in Greensboro at the time and then moved, so that paused. Then I picked it back up part-time, fast forward a couple years there in 2010, basically. And so The transition from part-time to full-time. So I was doing it part-time for a year or so prior to that, and then another year or so after that. So there was split with some school in there. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I had two like kind of like solid years of like part-timey time frame before I made the transition into full-time. And for me, it was one of those things that like I knew it's what I wanted to do. And it may not be that way for everyone else. You know, you might be, you know, into other things, and music is kind of like your side hustle or your, you know, hobby that you really enjoy. And maybe you're thinking, like, well, hey, maybe I could do this full time. I was never that way. It was always like, I want to do this full time, 100%. But I did have a transition from where I couldn't do it and I was doing it part time until I just made the leap. So for me, it was it was pretty cut and dry. It was like, all right, I'm gonna take a little leap of faith. I'm gonna rent this space for 2 years. And I signed a lease for 2 years on my first like studio space. And I'm like, I'm gonna give this thing a go. Like the business was like already started. The space was now in Wilmington. So I went from a shared studio space, rehearsal space where I started it part time to I'm gonna give this thing a go on my own kind of thing. And I had a limit on myself. I was basically like, I'm gonna do this for 2 years and see how it goes. Like I wasn't like, you know, delusions of grandeur or anything like that. I don't think at the time I was trying to be conservative and was like, yeah, if it works out, I'll keep going. If it doesn't, I'll fall back and try something else. You know, at that point I had a business degree.
Right.
So I could, you know, fall into something else that I had a fresh degree, so I could go in a number of directions at that point. Didn't want to, of course. I always wanted to just do music, and fortunately, it did work out, and that's what ended up happening. But I was prepared for it to not work full time, and for me to take a step back, basically.
Yeah.
I'm sure I would have fallen back into like a part time situation if it didn't take off, and certainly would have kept playing and recording myself. But yeah. Anyway, it could go in a number of ways. I was kind of prepared for
Yeah.
any scenario.
But you made it. So at the end of those 2 years, how
Yeah.
did you know that you were good to keep going?
So that's a good question. So the it was a struggle. I mean, to no surprise, it was hard to gain enough business and traction to make it into a full time thing. And when do you know that like you are at that tipping point? It's a tough thing to know. I mean, you gotta, of course, you know, you need to know how much, you know, you need to survive, and then you need, you know, a certain amount to pay your bills, and then a certain amount on top of that to enjoy your life, right? So what finding that can be hard while you're working on something else, right? While you're doing your other job. Um, and for a lot of you, you might be full time somewhere and you're part timing as like you're moonlighting this thing, right? So you're pulling in the extra hours after your full time job as the other part time in the audio world. And so um, for me, at the end of that 2 year period, I was getting close to the end of the lease. And I remember, I think I've talked about this on another episode, but things were like not going well in the sense that like I was making good stuff. I think I was doing a decent job. I mean, listening back on some of the stuff now, it's like, oh gosh.
Right. Right.
But at the time, like I was trying hard at the time, and I thought it was working out. The people I were working with were happy with what I was giving them, and so it was good. I just didn't have enough of a network or enough business to make the leap to be like, okay, this thing is gonna be fine, right? The business was like in flux at that point, and I remember I was like, I need to come up with something to gain more clients. Is really what it came down to. It was like I just need more business. That's what it needs. Um, and so if I can get more clients, I can keep going. And so I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, Ryan. Shout out Ryan if you're listening to this. About we just like brainstormed on things to like help get the name out there, the Hourglass name, and between the two of us, we came up with basically a battle of the bands competition that was not like in a live sense, that like it was being performed somewhere live, but I would bring each of the bands in the competition into the studio, record a single for them, and film it. And then we put the music videos on Facebook to be voted on to see who won the
Oh, that's a
competition.
cool idea.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so that was huge. Like that was the tipping point to where the studio was like, all right, the name got out there, business started flowing in. Like it was very clear that like I could keep going,
Nice.
basically. And so
Nice.
what that did was like I think the first time we did this, we ended up doing this multiple times. I did it three separate times. So the first year I did it, I think I had 19 or 20 bands sign up to come in. So right there, even if they're, regardless of like who won or what happened, I had 19 bands come into the studio within like a 2-3 month period,
Wow.
which was more than the entire year prior, I think, altogether. And so of those 19, 20 bands, I think I had, looking back on it, it was like a 50 to 60% like conversion rate to they came back to record outside of the competition. So
That is significant.
yeah, it was most like every other group was like, oh man, I didn't know this was here. This is cool. Oh, and then they got the song recorded, and they I was doing a good enough job, I guess, at the time, and they're like, yeah, the song turned out great. They're like, we want to come back and do an EP, or we want to come back and do an album, or so on and so forth, or a single. And so that was huge. Like from there, I think I was booked out like almost 6 months after the competition was over with returning clients from the competition. And then, every musician knows another musician, right? And so their friends saw, or their musician friends or buddies, whatever, saw the video because of course, they're like, hey man, go on and, vote for my video on this competition. So the spread of their social networks got my name out there. And then I had other groups coming that weren't in the competition because they just heard about the studio through the competition. And so that was huge. I ended up doing it again the next year. I whittled it down. I think I capped it at like 15 bands because it was a lot of work. And then same thing happened, another 50, 60% conversion. At that point, like the network had grown so much in such a short period of time, I had more work than I could keep up with, basically. And I was constantly booked out 3-4 months or so, and which was awesome. And then I didn't need to do the competition anymore. Like it was too worked, and it was great. And so I didn't do it the next year. I was like, I got a lot to work on. I can't take time to do this free thing for, scattered in there. And then after we didn't do it that year, I had so many people come to me and say, hey, when are you going to do another competition? Like they wanted to be in it and do it again. So by popular demand, I ended up doing it a third time because people asked for it. So
Man, that's cool.
yeah. And I think at that point, I might have whittled it down a little bit further. I think there was only 10 contestants by the last one. And so each of the winners got I think almost a week's worth of studio time or something like that.
Sick.
Enough to record like an EP or maybe an album if they were diligent,
Yeah.
So that was good. So I was already working with them, and then like I said, the conversion rate. So that was the point that like So I was giving it a go at full time, but it hadn't stuck until that moment right
Wow.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's so cool. That's like your defining moment.
Yeah.
Of like,
Yeah.
all right, I'm gonna be a studio owner full time.
That's right. That's like kind of what put Hourglass on the map in the area and gave me enough like traction to keep it going.
So cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So
Nice.
what about yourself?
Yeah.
Tell me about your journey.
Well, as far as what I'm doing now, that has been a relatively recent change as far as going full time.
Mm-hmm.
Just being a freelance mix engineer. I've only been doing it for a little bit over a year now, and it was a hard decision.
Yeah.
It was tough getting to this point. I worked in church as a worship pastor and then production director in different roles, really since I was like 18 years old, and really just I had sensed and felt like it was time to do something different for a while, but I was kind of scared to make the leap because it's all I had really ever known or really ever done, or so I thought at the time. But it's like, yeah, I mean, this is just my job. This is what I do for a job. I work in church. And I remember I was hitting this point where my job just wasn't really clicking with me anymore. The one that I was working, the last full-time job I had. And I went to hang out with my friend Andy, which shout out Andy if you're listening, and was talking with him. And I'd been talking with him a lot about kind of what I was going through, and he kind of stopped me this one night. We were having a beer over at Fermental here in Wilmington.
Nice.
And he's like, "Wait a second." He's like, "Dude, you realize you don't need a full-time job anymore." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Man," he's like, "in the 7 years I've known you or whatever, like you've been a piano teacher, you're doing freelance audio engineering on the side. That seems to be growing more and more and more. You're a professional musician. Like you do a ton of different things." He was like video work. He was like, you could probably make as much money or more just doing all of those full time.
Yeah.
And not having a day job.
Well, that's cool. So it was like basically a outsider perspective there.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it was cool because like I'd thought about it and I'm like, oh man, it would be awesome just to be this freelance guy and do all these things that I like to do. But in my head, I'm like, that's just impossible. Like, it's going to take years for me to get to that point.
Right.
But meanwhile, it literally just took one friend who knew me really well being like, you've already got it, bro. It's time.
Yeah. You're pretty much already there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's time. You got to cut the cord though.
Yeah. Yeah. The day job's what's holding you back.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah.
So anyway, I kind of took what he said and thought about it and obviously went home and like talked to my wife, and she'd been telling me this for years too.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it took someone who wasn't, her to
Of
also
course.
be like, hey, no, really though, like you can totally do this.
Sometimes the people, unfortunately, people that are closest to you, you don't heed their advice as easily.
Yep, for sure.
For whatever reason.
Yeah, so anyway, I did. I cut that cord. And it was one of the most terrifying things I've ever done. And I don't know, I'm a planner. I like to kind of plan things out and make sure I have things lined up for the future. But when you're freelance, there's only so much of that you can do, right?
Yeah.
So I'd made a ton of calls. I had really kind of scoured my network and told people, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing. Would love to work with you in the future again or for the first time and whatever. And I had lined some things up, but it really was I only had about 2 months out. You know?
A little short runway.
Yeah, short runway. But at the same time, it's like, this is just how it's always been.
Yeah.
Any freelance work I've ever done has always been 2 to 3 months out pretty much.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, it's funny you say that because that's kind of where I live all the time.
yes, and I do too now.
Yeah, and it's a weird place to be, and like, it's like if you, what's the best way to think about this? So, I always had this feeling, and I still do have it at some point, sometimes, but it's like, what if no one else contacts me, or what if it starts to dry up after that? Like, I'm gonna be in big trouble. You know, I've got bills to pay. I've got things that I want to have in the studio. Like, I need to make sure that I can book as far out as I can. And pull in as much business as possible. But there was a certain point, let's see. So I've been doing this like 17 years or so now, and like, full time for 15 or so of those years. And I would say, honestly, it wasn't but like 5 or 6 years ago where I really was like, it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I feel like I'm going to run out of work, more comes in at some point.
It
I
does.
just need to let that go, buckle down, do the best that I possibly can for what I've got going on right now, and the next job will come.
It always does, man.
Yeah.
It's that scarcity abundance mindset.
It is.
You know?
It is. And I think there's something healthy about having that. Like, you shouldn't be too overly confident about it, or else you could find yourself in trouble. But at the same time, you shouldn't stress on it.
No,
Yeah.
you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've talked about this previously, but there's a difference between looking at your calendar, seeing that you don't have much going on, and being like, oh, well, I just hope something works out.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what either of us do.
No.
I mean, I certainly pick up the phone and I'm like, okay, like, oh, you know what? This person told me 6 months ago to contact them because they wanted me to, produce XYZ for them or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's that's a huge part of what we do too. Like, if you're gonna make it, sometimes it seems like it's kind of flowing like honey and there's just work that's gonna be coming in or whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's no, you gotta pick up the phone and you gotta follow up with somebody.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and you gotta network and
Yeah.
follow a lead, so to speak.
Yeah.
But that's all. I would much rather. I reached this point, and this is what kind of made me realize it is time to pull the cord. I realized I work really, really hard.
Yeah.
I always did.
Yeah.
When I was working full time for church, I worked really, really hard because I liked working really, really hard and doing my best. I hit this point though where I realized I think I would much rather work really, really hard for myself
Yeah.
than for somebody else.
100%.
Yep.
Totally.
And I work as hard now, if not harder, than when I worked a full-time job.
Yep.
But I find it much more rewarding.
Yeah.
On the back end of it.
Agreed. Agreed.
I have a more direct connection with I work really hard and I get paid for working really, really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels good when you've really kind of given your all to a project or, a month's worth, a group of projects. And at the end of the month, you can look back and you're like, yeah, I did it. Like, I made the money I needed to make for the month and maybe then some. And I turned out with some really good products too.
Mm-hmm.
It's really nice. It's really nice. So,
man.
And like, I think I heard this from somebody else, but it was like, if you're worried or you need to drum up some business, right? It's like you can turn on the faucet basically. And what that, means, like what you're saying, like give people a call or, get yourself out there. And like, from my perspective, I'll start, I don't want to say advertising exactly. It's not like an ad, but it's like I put myself out there a little bit more, right? Maybe do some more content posting, like showcase more of what I'm working on now. And who knows? Someone might see it and be like, oh, hell yeah, It's like, reach out. So, yeah.
Yep. I mean, I'm having to do that right now. My, my early winter is looking a little bit sparse. So I've sent a few texts out to production managers or people I've worked with, being like, hey, would love to fill my calendar in a little bit. Let me know if you have anything. And people respond well to that.
Yeah.
They like to know, oh, yeah, you think about us.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
a good thing.
It is.
So
it is.
Yeah. So I guess I guess a good way to maybe kind of start wrapping this up would be here's my opinion. If you as a listener are like, yeah, I think I want to do this full time, how do I know when it's the right time to go into whatever you want to do full time? Professional musician, audio engineer, you name it. What would you say is the answer to that, Trent?
Okay. So I would say that it probably does look a little bit differently for each person, but in general, I would say when you get to the point that you start to say, like, so a lot of it has to do with income, right?
Totally.
So when you start to get to the point that your side hustle or this thing, right, your audio part-time job is starting to make like close to half, I think, of what your full-time job is, I think that's a good signal that if you went full-time with it, you could replace that job.
Yeah.
Um,
That's about what it was working out
Yeah.
to be for me.
yeah, if you
Yeah.
can get to like the 50% point, then I think it's safe to take a leap, I think.
Yeah, definitely
If
safer.
you're over that, then yeah, you probably have a good time to go
Yeah.
with it. If you're under that, just know you might have to cut back in some ways to make up that difference in the beginning. But you will probably get there if you stick with it.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I think that's dead on. That's a
Okay.
safe way to do it. The other side of it, and this is just me kind of just, I don't know, being me,
Sure.
but I'm kind of like, you can also just suss it out and just be like, I don't know. I feel like if I just stopped putting all my energy, you gotta know yourself as a person.
Yeah.
Are you the kind of person who's like, am I putting a lot of energy into this thing? And if I stopped giving all that energy here and put it into this other thing, would it flourish?
Right.
It's not a guarantee there.
No.
There's
Yeah.
not.
Right.
But for some people, that's what works.
Yeah, I like to think it's like a lot of music business, a lot of businesses, right? A lot of any type of businesses or whatever, because essentially that's what we're talking about here is showing up, doing it, consistency, and routine. Like I remember back in the early days, I would go to the studio knowing that I didn't actually have anything to work on that day. Like I had already finished the only project or two projects that I had earlier in the week or last week. And I remember myself thinking like, I guess I don't have to go to work today. I could sit around and play guitar for a little bit longer or whatever. And I was like, no, it's like, I need to treat this thing like a job if I want it to be my job,
Such a good point.
Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like dress for the job you want, right?
Yeah.
Not the job you have. So I would go and I would either work on some of my own material and just practice my skills, or I would research new skills, or I would work on marketing the studio, or I would remix something else just to, or I would optimize my setup. I would do something.
Yeah.
And just that energy putting towards the thing attracted other energy.
It totally does,
It
man.
does. And I don't, whatever you believe or whatever you don't believe about that, but I think that is a thing.
It is, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I would do the same thing, especially when I was getting started out. That's when I did mastering.com, really. That's when I finished that program, because I was like, even if I'm going to still wake up and treat this thing as though I had to get to work at 8 a.m., I'm going to show up, sit down at my desk, and I'm going to learn something.
Yep.
That's what I'm going to do if I don't have something to work on.
Exactly.
And it makes a huge difference.
It's a great time to be learning something new.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I agree with your points, man. And the last thing I have to say, I guess, is similar to the story that I just shared, but I'll kind of end cap it with this. If you have somebody that you really trust in your life that is telling you from the outside, like, hey, man, you got this.
Yeah.
It's time, Really listen to that. I have a card that my wife wrote me for my birthday 2 years before I decided to cut the cord.
Mm-hmm.
And it said something like, happy birthday, I love you so much. I know you've been having a tough time at work, because at the time I was just working a ton in my full-time job. And in there, I think the last thing she wrote in there said something along the lines of like, maybe it's time to quit and start your own business.
Hey.
And I remember reading that and being like, that's really sweet, babe, but like, there's no way I can do that.
Right.
Like, I'm not that guy.
Right.
Meanwhile, now that I look back at it, it's like, yeah, I was totally that guy.
Yeah.
And I had
She
all
was
these
right.
other plates spinning in the air, and she totally knew. She knew
Yeah.
exactly what the deal was.
She could see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, trust the people around you.
That's right. That's right.
They're seeing you in ways that you're not seeing yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun. I think, hopefully you guys have taken something from that. Me and John have both gone through it. And to that point, like, leave us a comment, shoot us an email, shoot us a message. If you're struggling with this right now, we would love to talk to you about it.
We really
and,
would.
I mean, we've got more to offer than we can even fit in this episode, and we'd be happy to start a conversation in the community about it.
Yep.
So,
And the easiest way to be an entrepreneur is to talk to other entrepreneurs.
yes,
So-
absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, Trent, what you working on?
Yeah, what are we working on? All right, so I'm working with this. I'm still working with the Mid-Atlantic. I was about to try to generalize them, and it's a little difficult. So
Yeah.
the Mid-Atlantic, they're newgrass, bluegrass. So they have drums, so newgrass kind of thing. But banjo, mandolin, all the fiddle, all the good stuff like that. They also are leaning into like a punk rock kind of thing with those instruments. So they're like a punk grass or something like
that's
that.
kind of cool. Punk
Yeah.
grass. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not every song is, on it like that, but they are, going that way. So
Cool.
It's
Very cool.
just a little something different. And the cool thing about them, I've gotten to know them over the years, is so this ties in great. They won the first competition that I did way back in the day.
Sweet.
In and they were very much just in the bluegrass, newgrass style at that point, and now they've kind of evolved into this kind of more rock punk grass stuff.
Very cool.
It's cool to have them back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that, man.
Yeah. How about yourself?
Corporate events.
Oh,
Pew, 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 pew.
that's right. Voice of God.
Voice of God. That's right. Yeah. Just did a show in Raleigh, North Carolina, for First Citizens Bank. It was their big annual leadership summit. So mixed their panels and stuff, and tons of singer music, tons of Voice of God stuff, rehearsed to the nines. Just a classic,
Nice.
like high level corporate show.
Yeah.
Just classic. So I was A1 for that, and had a really great team of people. I worked with, every single person on this team I'd worked with before, and they're just a crackerjack team.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It was a lot of fun. I mean, as fun as corporate can be.
Yeah.
It's a little bit stressful.
Right.
But at the same time, if you're with people that you like and that you've worked with before, it makes it a lot better. So it was a fun one, definitely.
Good. Very good.
Yeah, man.
Awesome, dude.
Cool.
Well, I think that kind of ends it for us today.
I think you're right.
Please leave a comment if you feel so inclined. Like, subscribe, shoot us an email if you want. Check us out on Patreon. Check us out at audiopath.com. But until next time.
Steady the path.